All right, welcome back to another Ladder Legends replay analysis. This time from the Zerg player Kestnuts versus NetMech, the Terran player. Kestnuts was saying that he has a lot of trouble dealing with NetMech style and he doesn't know how to break in and actually win games. So let's take a look and see what we can find out. So we'll just unless we see anything too major in the opening, we will just kind of breeze by this as normal. Note on this map, it's hard to say, but this map has a lot of interesting features. 4 bases are pretty much going to be pretty easy for the Terran to hold on to, but then when they try to get their 5th base, it's going to be quite difficult. I think this should make this, in theory, so long as you don't get some sort of 4-base mech parade push. So, if, for instance, you take bases 1, 2, and 3. Hold on, let me pull up my epic pen. Should have done this before I hit record. Cool, it's not showing up. We'll just do without. So if they take bases 1, 2, 3, and then they use this as a launching point to push here and then take this base, that could see pretty, or rather, I guess you would take, if you take this base as the Zerg player and they take this base as the 3rd, and then they use this as launching point for an attack, and eventually they would attack this near natural and maybe even take this base. That could be pretty rough. Other than that, so their push and attack on you is supported by supports their expansion pattern. But if this situation does not come to pass, so if we expand this way, then either take maybe both these bases, so that if they push this one too heavily, we can just retreat here. Even though the base is very far away, Zerg is much more mobile, therefore is more able to make use of these bases. Whereas Terran, once they take these bases, they have to figure out how they're going to take this base or this base. And if you make it significantly difficult, even if you can't mine this base, you can probably make it difficult for them to mine that base. So they have to come up this way, come over here, and this starts to get very, 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 very difficult and far for them to actually hold. So that's something to consider. The 5th base is going to be a big target on this map. Assuming that the Terran can't get anything going against us before then. So there's 3 barracks. As soon as I see these barracks, I'd probably make sure we try to get out of here. We do live. This is good. Seeing the 3 barracks at home shouldn't be too concerning. I think the most that we'd really need to do, we obviously don't see that he made the command center as he kicked us out of his base before then. It's for this reason it might be more advisable to come here, although then he could just raise. I mean, the fact that he has 3 barracks, he's clearly going to raise, so I suppose coming out this way is probably better. Ultimately, I think what we would like to do here, this is one of those strange maps, and I don't play this map, so I don't know. I'm going to be thinking out loud here a little bit, but some amount of actually sending a drone to micro and see what the heck's going on might be very useful on this map. You should be able to get in, and then you can even get down, even if he's walled this off. There's these mineral bases. So there's a good chance that you'll be able to see that he's taking a command center just from a drone scout. But additionally, your Ling should also go across map, which I believe they're queued up to do. And they should be planning on coming up here and seeing, are you still producing out of these barracks? Are you making add-ons for these barracks? Are you taking a base? And then that's going to inform what happens next. In this case, we would see that he's only producing out of 1 barracks, and he is taking a command center. So the biggest issue that this opening brings for NetMech is that he is heavily invested into 3 barracks, which he has made 3 Marines out of so far. This is not a very good use of resources, as essentially, he had the same amount of Marines out of 1 barracks. And he's basically saying, I really don't want to be link flooded, so I'm going to heavily invest into defenses. And he thinks if I just can survive the early game, I suppose I'm putting myself in his shoes here. I suppose he thinks if I can just survive the early game, I can rely on the power of mech in order to prevail. The problem is this significantly slows down his economy. And so the biggest thing that we need to do is recognize that his economy has been significantly slowed down, and we can just take bases and we can start expanding our economy very quickly because he is not putting on much threat to us, and we are able to get a huge economic advantage from this. But what we're actually doing is we are still mining gas after the we have enough for link speed, and throwing down a roach ward. So we are basically he's playing hyper defensively, and we are leaning into attacking his hyper defensiveness. So we're attacking him at his point of power, when instead we should be targeting his weakness, which is that he has voluntarily given us, which is that he is going to be economically on the back foot. So we make some amount of roaches, but again, this roach attack, while maybe can turn out okay, one, you need to have high ground vision, so the Overlord needs to not have died. This Overlord needs to come back over and give high ground vision so that we can be biling. And then two, it's just totally unnecessary. Like, we just need to take a base. Okay, we're droning up. This is fine. It's slow. It's a slower. We have slowed our economic, just like he slowed his economic. So that's just the biggest thing that I need to keep emphasizing right now is that even though we are ahead in economy, we could be even more ahead. We could have got to this point sooner, which would allow us to have more money overall, allow us to already start taking a fourth. That layer could already be done. We could be starting to get our upgrades could be already on the way. Like, all these things could have been started already. And then now that we know that we don't necessarily know, so we could have, as soon as the layer's finished, we should start a overseer as well, so we can start to see, is he planning on attacking us on two bases, or is he planning on not? And as soon as we see that he has 4 command centers, we should definitely be very happy making a 4th and a 5th base. And we can have some amount of units. Like, we could pretty much forego all units if we had an Overseer Scout here, which would have come from not doing this earlier attack and gotten an earlier hatchery and getting a Lair Scout in and seeing the 4 command centers. We could just completely forego most units and just, like, economically power up 5 bases till we get to 90 drones. And then if we got to that point and we were able to, like, start to make units, we could start to, like, harass him a bit as he tries to take his 3rd, but ultimately he's going to take his 3rd, and this is completely fine because we're on 90 drones and we're pretty happy with him having 4 bases. So we just harass him as he tries to take his 3rd, but like ultimately only take good trades left to take his 3rd. We harass him as he tries to take his 4th, but again, the same thing, we're only taking good trades, and we're really going to turn on the gas whenever he tries to take a 5th. But until then, you know, we're just focusing on getting a good army composition together. Ravagerling Bane would be my recommendation. And if he does go for starports, you can add in Hydras if you're kind of feeling like you don't want to deal with it. But also, just Queens, Infestors, and Vipers work very well against, you know, some small amount of, Queens alone can deal with like a couple of Banshees. You can add in a couple of Infestors in order to fungal and actually kill the Banshees. And then if he starts going even more Banshees, you can add in some Vipers, which makes the Banshees extremely, extremely squishy and not to do well. So ultimately here, he has opted to like completely relieve pressure on us so that he can focus on a hyper economic expansion, but because he's played so defensively so he doesn't die, we should be able to outscale him in the economic expansion quite easily if we identify this. And then now our army should be, let's see what we have for army. We have a very small army right now, which is completely fine. So I think that we probably could have a slightly larger army at this point and have even more than we do if we just focus on the economy and forego the super early roach attack. But even if we don't, this is fine. He can take the third base, and that's not a problem for us. But now we really want to make sure we got lings here, we got lings here, and then we're also checking for any like hidden bases because he might try to take a hidden base as well. And we want to turn on the gas a little bit when he tries to take a fourth base, just because we can. And again, we don't need to stop him from taking a fourth base. It's just let's not let him get it for free. And then we'll put it into massive overdrive when he tries to take a fifth base. In terms of army composition, we are going to want to be focused on injects. We probably want to get macro hatches. We have too many roaches here. I would say we should have 5 to 6, 7, 8 less roaches. Maybe this number of roaches would be total, and 3 or 4 more of them should be turned into ravagers. So ultimately, and then the rest of our army, so obviously 90 drones sounds pretty good. And then the rest of the army can be Ling Bane with about 20 to 30 Banes, and the rest Lings. And the Banes are just going to go run into Hellbats and make sure that the Lings don't go to their death before the Hellbats are dead. And then we're just going to keep remaxing on Ling Bane, keeping the core backbone alive, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. This would be the strategy here. Here, the attack angle, so this is, again, we don't need to attack his third base. So if we're going to attack his third base, we need to make sure that we're doing it from a good angle and only doing it because it's like going to be fun for us. So like one thing we could do here, if we were better at scouting and better say, we saw that he flowed all the barracks, it's possible we could try to actually bust up this way. But ultimately what we should really do is we should take our attack and we should come up this way and we should attack in more from even this same way, but from this angle, or come over this way and attack this angle if we're going to attack at all. Because we don't want to be running up to his army this way. I really wish I had my epic pin, but we're running up to the army this way, which is giving this tank the ability to shoot us several times before we even start the engagement. So we want to minimize the ability for the tank to actually shoot before the engagement starts. This angle would minimize. This angle, we might even not get hit by that tank at all, and you could potentially force him off here. But ultimately, that would require a nice big rotation up this way, which should be completely fine. We can do this rotation as long as we maintain vision in front to make sure he's not moving out as we're doing this rotation. The one thing is, again, and I can't emphasize this much, if we do take this fight, we must engage his army and we must trade out army. We should not just go for killing planetaries and SCVs, because what we really don't want is we really don't want to trade out a bunch of army to kill a plant like all the SCVs here, but he still has a big army and we don't have enough larva to completely remax instantly, and then he can push across map and make life very, very difficult for us. So ultimately, right now is maybe a bit premature for us to really want to fight, because we want to start to build a larva bank before we actually fight, so that when we trade, we can instantly remax and we don't have a timing that he can just unsiege, push across map, and kill us. However, if we take this fight well, it's technically okay because we can reduce his army count, and then even if it takes us a little bit while to get back to 200, he won't have an army to push us with. But ultimately, the fight itself goes fine. Like, essentially what we said, more or less, like, this is completely fine. We just need to remax again on... we need to remax on more roaches and ravagers now. So just all these roaches that are alive should turn into ravagers, and then we should make like 2 or 3 more, maybe 4 more roaches, and then the rest should be Link Bane. And then we really need to focus on getting our injects and our creep up. All our hatcheries should have queens, injecting them. We have queens everywhere, so this should be injected. Getting our creep spread out, and then again maintaining control of these bases that he might take as a 4th base. And trying to take this was a fine fight, but it wasn't really as efficient as we can be taking against him. When he tries to take a 4th base, we'll be able to take a very efficient fight. And that's what we're looking to do.
He should not be allowed to take this fourth base for free. If he's able to actually establish this base and start to get like reinforcements here, then all of a sudden the game gets very difficult. Because this is a base that he should not be allowed to take. Looks like we actually do see and stop him, so that's good. But at the same time, we don't actually need to be fighting here. Again, we have a large counterattack up here. I don't know if we know that it's... Yeah, we don't know, but like we have a large amount of units up here. He's trying to take this base here. It's enough for us to just stop him. If we stop him, time is on our favor. And again, we can still take fights with his army, but we shouldn't do it from this angle. We need to come around and do it from this angle or this angle. And this angle is starting to become less desirable because we need to just stop him from taking, or we're wanting to stop and delay him from taking this space. So by that count, we can just stay here and wait for him to come out. He eventually has to. Or if we really want to get froggy, we could come around and try to attack him this way. But it's a little bit risky. It risks him maybe being able to get this base up, although the creep's starting to block that itself. So that might be okay now to start rotating around and doing this attack. But again, we do not want to attack through this way because it's just a bad angle to attack from. Okay, it still turns out kind of okay as well. But ultimately, what we want to do here is as soon as the front line, which is Ling Bane, dies, we throw Biles and then we back off. So we throw Biles, we killed a little bit. If we notice what we killed here, we killed So we killed a tank, we killed a couple of Hellions, killed another Hellion, killed another tank, and then throw some Biles here, and then back off, and we want to preserve the back line. Preserving this fight went really well for us, but then we are overstaying, and even here, maybe it continues to go well, but now there's no more Ling Bane. The Lings are completely gone. Now the fight goes kind of poorly for us. So we back off, but honestly, I would say we back off 10 seconds too late. I would have backed off before even those last Lings came in because they just weren't there yet. They weren't there for the fight. So we need to take these fights, and then we need to back off sooner. Again, the angle was not great, and then not backing off was the biggest issue, like as soon as we should have. Let's keep watching. At this point, we're fighting. We are 200, and kind of everything is here. But again, I think we kind of have a maybe too big of a pack of Lings here. You can just have, like, now that we've dealt with this, we could take these Lings and we could put most of them with our main army and just leave one Ling Burr at the base. And researching Burr would be not a bad move at this point either. And then those Lings could be... I don't know if we really need these. These Hydras are kind of meaningless at this point. It would be much better that these Hydras were just more Lings. Yeah. More Ravagers, 5 more Ravagers, and more Lings. And it's if we have more Lings, if these Hydras don't exist, they're just Lings, maybe we can leave these units here. But either way, we could bring these units here, like now, and maybe these Hydras are okay if we pull all of our army together. But we really should, they're really unnecessary. So there's a lot of stuff we're doing that's like maybe okay, but it's unnecessary. So I would recommend let's cut the unnecessary stuff out and just do the bare essentials, and do the bare essentials very well. So we need Ravagers, some Roaches, and then Ling Bane, until he gives us a reason that we need to have something else. So we can prepare the tech, but don't make the units until we need something else. Medevacs alone really aren't, like, we're not really worried about medevacs, right? He can make as many medevacs as he wants. Not a problem. He's making mechs, so, you know. And then there's going to be a certain point when the one tech that we want to start to actually prepare is Broodlords. And as we start to see, he's starting to get more and more siege tanks. Eventually, you know, if he only has one or two Thors, if we start to notice that he stops making Thors, right now he's kind of got a decent army split. Maybe he's a little bit tank heavy, but he's mostly good. What we can do is we can see what he continues to make. If he knows here, he's still making Thors. So if he ever stopped making Thors and started just going into tanks, then we would do like a Broodlord swap to punish that. But as of now, there's really nothing. We can just keep doing Ravager Ling Bane. And the biggest thing is he's mining out we can stop pushing into his fortified position. We don't really care. Like, he needs to come out and take a base at some point here or take a base here. And so what we would like to do is start building a bank so that we can afford huge tech transitions, like big high-tech armies like Broodlords, Infestor Ultra, something like that. We want to start building a bank while he is unable to build a bank because he's stuck on 3 bases. And then we can continue to take efficient fights. And remember, we're completely fine with a 4-base mech Terran. No problem, right? And he is having such a hard time, even considering taking this easy base here. He's going to try to take this completely untakeable base here. So really, where we should be considering like hammering him is over here now. This is where we can start to hammer really hard, even though, once again, we don't have to because it's only 4 bases. But this map is just so not great for mech. And once again, we keep on doing this. We're attacking, like, this is the strategic problem that we keep making, is we're attacking his point of power here. We're building up, and we're like, we must break your point of power. But let's attack him where he's weak, right? Don't attack him where he's strong. He's got 1,000 tanks sieged up here. No need to try to break this. The map is, you gotta realize that mech's slow. Mech is slow and lumbering. And so when it comes to this map is huge. There's a ton of real estate that you have to defend on this map as both sides. As the game progresses, as time continues, as time ticks up, there's more and more real estate that the players have to stretch themselves to get the resources. So the mech's problem is going to be stretching himself with his slow units to defend this real estate is going to become harder and harder for him, whereas we should be very, very happy and it should be very, very easy. So we decided to finally switch over here. This is the correct place to attack. It would have been nicer to attack slightly sooner, but even now it's completely fine. So we attack it, we kill it, perfect. Let's remax, let's do it again. That was the right call. Also, let's make sure that he doesn't get ninja bases up. We should be taking all the bases on the map or having a birdling at all the bases on the map at this point. This base is completely illegal. He's going to try for it. You know, it's a little trick that he's got to try because he knows that he's in a bad spot. He can't just take bases. But this is a completely illegal base that should never go up. Okay, so now his entire army is here. But again, we've transitioned to Hydras, and again, for why? The army balance of Ravagers, you know, about 11, 12 Ravagers, and then a couple of Roaches, and then Massling Bane. This was fine. This is completely fine. We don't really need to change off of that. And ultimately, the goal here would be then to I'm trying to find, like, you just want to find the best angles of attack. So this is also where, like, changelings come in. If you have a bunch of overseers, you start making changelings. You'll notice, by the way, so, okay, I was harping that this was the good point of attack because, like, he can't defend both these areas, right? You'll notice that now all of a sudden this is, like, super well defended. But if we go back here now, we see that all of a sudden there's no longer quite as many tanks here. So if we have very good with our changing scouting, we see his entire army has shifted up here. A bunch of tanks have shifted up here. There's very few tanks now here. Now is the correct time to come and attack here and start to attack here. The mech player has a problem, and the big problem for the mech player is that his production is all here, while his new mining is here. He can defend one side effectively. He can have a lot of stuff on one side to defend, but he can't defend both sides. So once again, even though now we've switched here to attack this place, this has now become his point of power, and we're once again attacking into his point of power instead of fighting where he's weak and attacking there. And again, I don't necessarily love the army composition. What we want to do is this giant mech army, we want to create a situation where he has to put it into less established places and then we can fight it. And we do that by attacking, you know, when this base is weak, we attack this base. When he's shifted everything up here to finally take this base, now we attack his production, right? But I think the big critical mistake we've been making all game is that we've been attacking where he's strong and then shifting our attack to where he's strong again. Like only once or twice did we actually attack where he's weak, and about 8 or 9 or 10 times we attacked him where he's strong. This started all the way back to the very beginning of the game with the first like Roach Ravager attack. It's like he's got 3 barracks walling and he's got a bunker. You know, he's playing very defensive, and yet we're choosing now to attack him when, you know, if we know he's got to take a third base, if we just economically power up and then plan to attack him at the third base instead, you know, and slow him down there, that would be much better. So I think that's the biggest issue that we have this game, is that we've continually chosen to attack him on the map at points of time and at places in the map where he's at a point of power. And what we should be doing is we should be scouting constantly to figure out, and we should be thinking about the game state and thinking, is he playing in a super defensive now? Does he have any reason he needs to leave his 2 bases right now? Well, he's got a lot of resources for a while, so he's already bunkered himself up on 2 bases. Like, he will not be weak until he either voluntarily chooses or is compelled to take a third base. And eventually he will be compelled to take a third base because he'll mine out, but he'll probably want to take a third base faster, right? And so we want to be ready to capitalize on whatever he chooses, or whenever he's compelled to take third base, try to capitalize then. And then the same thing. We want to, when he tries to take a fourth base, we want to be ready to, whenever he is compelled to take a fourth base, because he's running out of resources, or he chooses to take third base, we want to be able to pounce on him then. And once he secures 4 bases, now he's starting to spread himself out a little bit thinner. And so we can still let him have it. Now it's the 5th base, though. He's going to become compelled to take a 5th base, and at this point, he will not be able to defend everywhere effectively. By the time he has to take 5 bases, no chance that he'll be able to. On a regular map, it's difficult, and on this map, it's very, very difficult. If he has to start to try to take a 5th base, now we know that he's going to be like weak somewhere for sure, definitely. He's not going to be able to defend everywhere. And we just have to start finding where he's weak, whether it's at the 5th base or whether it's somewhere else, and attack there. So I think this is the big issue you're facing with NetMech style and mech in general, is identifying the time and the space where they are weak and choosing to attack there. Understanding that they can choose to be weak somewhere, because they like choose to like extend and expand, or they might be but if they don't ever choose to be weak, they will eventually be compelled to be weak because resources will run dry. And keep in mind that the production, even if like all the resources run dry in this part of the map that they have access to, the production will is still here, so therefore they can't just shift their entire attention to this side of the map here. Additionally, there is a little bit of resources left here. So if you're able to break their production this way, that grants you access to 1 extra base from them, because you get all the resources on your side of the map plus this base, which technically should have been theirs. All right, I hope that was helpful, and if you guys enjoyed this, consider subscribing to Ladder Legends so you can get replay analysis like this by posting in the channel. Thanks, bye.